It's creepy. I don't like it in here.
Hey, what's the matter with you?
Where did you go?
This place is wild. Put your soul into it. Wild. What's going on around here?
And welcome everybody to Haunting Live podcast this week. Thank you so much for being here. We are live right now, and thank you so much for taking your time out to be with us here this week and joining us for our special guest, who we will bring on in just a moment. I'm very excited this week to have this guest on as well. But first of all, don't forget to follow us on our social media. It would help us out a lot if you subscribe and also like our videos that we do post if you like our content here that we provide each and every week on Haunting Live podcast. But this week we do have a very special guest. I am excited about this one. It's a show that I watched in the past and enjoy very much, and honored to have one of the cast on here today of OutTV's Knock Knock Ghost. We welcome Kevin Whitaker. Hi Kevin, how are you?
Doing well.
Great. Thank you for joining us here today on Haunting Live. I appreciate it very much. I know you're the medium on the show for Knock Knock Ghost on OutTV, and that's been one of my shows I watched in the past and love watching the series. So thank you for taking time today to talk to us about what you do on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
No, it's wonderful to have you here. Always wanted to have at least one of you guys from the show here, so great to have the medium that's on the show. But I want to talk a little bit first about your background specifically, being a medium and stuff. How did you get into the mediumship field yourself?
From childhood, I would see spirits, and I just felt like they were the extra people in my home. And I had a hard time like sharing that. I grew up in the Bible Belt in South Carolina, and it's just not cool, or it's frowned upon. It's demonic or woo, scary. But as I got older, or I found more friends who were into the paranormal, throughout high school, the more I embraced what was going on. And that's when our first little investigation start. I guess I was about 16 years old, and we take the time to explore like what, not only what was going on with me, but kind of answer those big questions that all of us had. From there, I worked for a law firm for a bit of time. I ended up as a legal investigator and then a private investigator working in wrongful death and missing persons cases. Hated it. It doesn't translate into like very comfortable connections with spirits. We literally are looking for like a missing persons, and then you have their spirit. It gets frightening. Yeah. So that translated into doing professional readings.
That's interesting too, that you're sort of like a private investigator at the same time that you're leaning into mediumship. Did the two paths ever cross? Did you actually get to communicate with spirit while you're kind of doing some investigating work on the side, or?
A little bit, and I guess I was always kind of troubled that, like, it definitely had those moments where, spirit or intuition led us to answers within a case. I guess the heartbreak is it doesn't always translate to a successful conclusion, as per, each case you have. It just doesn't work that way. But I found that, like, initially when I first started doing readings, it was like the source of skepticism. It's like, oh, he was an investigator, he can investigate everybody, and have those answers and stuff. And so that's just simply not the way it worked. The wrongful death stuff too put us on the side occasionally of insurance companies and stuff, and I just felt icky about determining whether someone was negligent in the cause of their own passing, and have an insurance company say, well, no, we're not going to pay out for that. It left me icky. So I gave that up in the 90s.
Yeah, it's hard to combine those two together as a professional job on that end and having your mediumship on the other side, but trying to use that to, I guess, help out your professional job is kind of weird as well. I guess you might see it one way, but say your bosses or somebody else that you're dealing with might not see it the way that you do, right? So,
Yeah, it was tough to. I had my mentor in investigating step me aside and said, "You ever thought about giving like an intuitive reading?" And I'm like, "What?" And he was like, "Well, there's definitely something weird going on with you, so you might want to explore that route." And it left me feeling, because I grew up on a farm, and there was like this level of toughness we had to have. It left me feeling like I was too sensitive for the job, so to speak. But then it's great to be too sensitive as a medium. It's great to plug into that emotion and work to render conclusions for people.
so did you find then that you were leaning more into the mediumship side of things when you were working on the farm back home? Was it sort of something that overcame the farm aspect rather than wanting to stay there at home?
Yeah, it definitely gave me that sense that I knew I wasn't going to stay on the farm. It's weird because at 50 years old, I would do anything to live on that farm and run the farm. But back then, I think I knew I was destined to not be there, and that wasn't meant to be my life's work. And so it caused me to have this vast exploration of what I would do. I went on to like teach elementary school and give private readings, and decided, well, teaching's not my bag either. And I guess I was at a loss for what to do other than to do readings. And once I got started, it was very encouraging, the response that I received.
That's wonderful that you had a positive entry into the mediumship field then, that you actually were able to kind of ease into it the way you wanted to out of your field of the farm. So let's talk about that a little bit then. How was it for you once you started doing it? Did you find it an easy process to go through for yourself, or how did you start your development?
Yeah, I think that embracing the mediumship and the intuition and the psychicness was maybe a harder process, because there just weren't that many contemporaries back then in the 90s where I could point and say, well, I know what a reading looks like, or I know who this is. I went to a psychiatrist because I felt like there was a point where I was like, okay, what's happening to me? Is this a negative thing, or am I imagining it? And then on the third or fourth session, I was told that I should watch John Edward Crossing Over, if you remember that show. And I thought, that can't be your answer. I don't have insurance, and I'm paying for your professional advice. So there was a little bit of denial at first. It's like, okay, I didn't want that necessarily to be who I was. But the more I allowed its presence there, and the more I received spirit communicated message, the less I was like afraid of it, or afraid of. It's kind of like a stigma down there. It's like, this is going to be the stigma for the rest of my life. And it's funny, because my perspective on that in 2021 now is like, well, I'm honored to be a messenger for spirit, and there's no stigma whatsoever.
So at what point then did you actually kind of grow out of that stigma? Was it some event that happened that you were like, okay, this is what I was meant to do, or did one of the messages actually convince you, yeah, this is what I was supposed to do? Or
I think it had a lot to do with my parents just accepting it. I know that sounds strange, because I was grown. I was a grown man when that moment happened for me. But I knew I was comfortable with what I did, and I got a great response from my client base, and I felt the rewards of making those connections. But it wasn't until my parents like fully understood what I was doing. We had filmed a TV pilot for a different TV show, and what I did within that pilot like made national news in Canada. And it was me being able to share that moment with my parents, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we always knew," or yeah, it gave them a moment where it's like, "Oh, cool." Although I don't know that my dad always fully understood. He knew enough about the psychicness, but I don't know that he fully understood the mediumship side. He passed back in 2020.
Sorry for your recent loss there. That's unfortunate, but it does happen. So, but was that made it easier for you in a way that you kind of knew what was going to happen if something like that happens? Because I know you told me some news as well that unfortunately you have cancer yourself, so that's unfortunate as well. So how does that make you feel that you know some things being a medium that other people don't know?
Yeah, I think that definitely plays into that intuitive. I always separate my mediumship and my psychicness into three different categories. Intuition is simply that that kind of emotional response to something yet to happen. So it's like you feel giddy about just meeting someone and you can't explain that, and they end up being your best friend, or you're weary of getting in the car that day, and then you realize there's a 8-car collision on the highway or something. And then there's the precognition where you foresee those moments in your lives or in your life, and I really had to lean into those aspects. And then I felt strongly that I received a message from my dad that suggested that there was cancer present to begin with. And oddly, that was in the form of kidney stones. The last couple of times I'd had kidney stones, my dad had taken me to the hospital one time, and we were visiting my parents in South Carolina the second time. So the third time it happened, I told my wife, I said, my dad put this on me. And Sam's like, well, why would he do that? And then we find out I have the same renal cancer that my dad had. And it made a moment like actionable. I knew where things were going because of how they occurred with him. So in a way, but you still go to bed at night when you hear cancer and you're thinking, well, I see my life beyond this moment. And I had a nephrectomy back in May, the May 2-4 weekend. So they think it's all contained, and I got a good report just on Friday. So, but you still go to bed at night and you're like scared to death you could be wrong, and that you could lose everything due to your health. And so it's frightening. You just have to trust what you foresee is what is to occur for you. So, yeah, I think it helped.
Yeah, that's good that it helped. And then I think it gives you, like you said, some more comfort in knowing day to day or going to bed that night that you received what you received from a message from somebody, or that you knew it came from a place of love, right? So.
Yeah, I remember just being, my wife said that I first said that when I was under like Percocets and all these drugs for pain. They sent me home to pass the kidney stones at home, and had discovered the tumor. And she's like, you told me that under, like, when you were drugged up in your drugged up stupor. So I was like, yeah, I just knew that it made sense that was the parallel, and that Dad would want me to discover it earlier so that I would have a different experience.
And a safer and hopefully one that doesn't result in the same ending. So hopefully they did catch it all for you and it'll be resolved for you. So, but let's switch a little bit of topics here now. I would like to ask you how did things originate with the series Knock Knock Ghost, because that's what you're known for. You're the medium that's on that series. How did it all start for you? How did they find you, and what led you to being on the series?
Yeah, I got a message from Lauren Whitelaw, who is one of the producers of the show. She's married to Kyle Whitelaw, who's our director, producer. He's just the most creative person I've ever met. But Lauren I think she emailed us first and asked if I would be interested in doing a show. And I kind of put her off. I remember being like, yeah, we can meet up next week and talk about it. And then we got a quick email response back, asked if I could meet that day. So I went and met Lauren, and then Kyle had come along. And so I kind of gave them a little mini nugget of information. Yeah, a little mini reading. And they were a yes for the show, and I was too. My only skepticism about the show was when he described it to me. He described that there was comedy. It's a comedic ghost hunting show. And I was afraid of making light of the ghost hunting aspect or the psychic tour part. But I shouldn't have been afraid of that. I went home and we shotgunned the first 2 seasons with Jim Hunt, who's an incredible medium. And I was like, it's done so well that it's hard. Unless you see it, you can't imagine what that looks like. There's these little comedy sketches between a very serious psychic tour and an incredibly legitimate ghost hunt. And I think because they honored the psychic tour and the ghost hunt and kept it separate from the funniness, that it just works. So from there, we shot our first episode was Lang Pioneer Village. I don't know where that is exactly. I think it's up near Peterborough, maybe. And everybody just clicked. That was the first time I had like a group of 10 to 12 people that you're expected to work with, because sometimes psychics and mediums don't work well with others. But it's the first time it clicked. We were like a big family.
No, that's wonderful that you guys actually work together really well and things click, like you said. And that's really important when you're working not only in a setting like shooting a TV show, because you have to know what each person's role is in order to finish your work, right? You can't just be willy-nilly about it and be like, oh, I don't know what to do. You have to know what you're doing on a show, right? But also in the mediumship side of things, you have to know what you're doing too. So you have to have your mediumship separate from the show, but know what you're doing for the show. So it's great that you guys are able to work together and make it work. So, and I have seen, like I said, I'm a pretty big fan of the show, and I like the series a lot. And I think it is part of the format of the show to, like you said, have a comedy-based part in it, but I actually showcase the ghost hunting part of it as well. So,
yeah, it doesn't seem like it'd be something that could balance, but we found that. For my family, at least, we all could sit there and watch it and take away something. Here, oddly, my wife's not a fan of ghost hunting shows. It's not her thing, but she could sit there and watch it along with me, and my kids definitely. It spooked the hell out of my 10-year-old. He was just like, "No thanks."
that's awesome that your family can watch it, and I think it is a family type show where anybody can watch. It's not like certain people can watch the show only. So I do think it's a wonderful show that they put together. So let's talk a little bit now about some of the places that you guys went to. You mentioned the one in the Lang Village. What are some of the other locations that were memorable to you?
I think the two that stand out like the most for me is Aurelia Opera House in Aurelia, Ontario, and Ruthven National Historical Site, and that's in Cayuga, I think. What's cool about the two of those is like literally what I see of the location, that my psychic tour happens like within seconds of arriving at a location. So like if there was no psychicness, no mediumship there, a theater is like one hell of a, jamming place to go and investigate. It should be light and easy and fun. But like getting in there and feeling the pull in two different directions, like the basement had such like dark negative energy, and to have the spirit that I cleared from the jail cell, like what's a jail cell doing in a theater, I have no clue. But to have that and then have the lightness of the upper spaces was just such a dynamic place. I'd never been anywhere like that before. And then Ruthven had been in the same family for like 150 years or something. And when it became a National Historical Park, their last name's not Ruthven, the Thompson family donated everything, like all their possessions and everything within the house, for this museum to go and explore. And I find that layer of like artifacts, or that place that's been kept just the way it was, lands like the most incredible, inviting place for family spirits. It gives them like a 150-year playground to explore. And so it's the only place I've ever been where we walked in the door and within seconds, the ghost hunting equipment all went off. I was able to share what I was getting in an impactful way and have it corroborated with the equipment, which to me is what that should be like the key element of any mediumship led ghost hunting show, or even ghost hunting adventure, is that there should be that degree of corroboration.
No, that's great. We can testify to the Aurelia Opera House, because here at Haunting Live, that's one location that we have done as well. So we actually did that location too. And we can corroborate with you that yes, there is some negative energy down in the basement, and there is different energies upstairs as well. We got activity on the stage area. We got activity just in the seating area as well. So, and we actually went upstairs. I don't know if you guys got to go up to the very top into sort of the booth area, but
where they used to broadcast. Yeah,
we got to go up there and investigate as well, and we got some interesting things happening there too. We had a little group session up in that back room, and we saw shadows, and we got a shadow on video from that room, and we had stuff thrown at us as well from that room too. So some poltergeist stuff too upstairs.
Check that out. It's definitely a place I want to go back to. There was this like secondary theater room that was painted black. And that's where we got a majority of our activity. But it's the one place where I've been told it hasn't happened on TV before, where a medium says, well, the motion detector is going to go off, and this is going to go off. And I just point to both and say, okay, those two things are going to go off, and they do. But I don't know. I mean, a fan told me that, so they could be a fan on our show. But it was definitely one of the busiest places, and beautiful. It really has that kind of grand theater look to it.
Yeah, it's an awesome location, and when we were there doing ours, it was wonderful just to walk around, see all the historicness that it has, learning about the history of it as well. I know a few things that used to be a police station at one point, and that's why there's jail cells down below. So that's where that comes from. But it used to.
I don't get the history, so it's like. I think that's why it was like disconcerting for me. Is you see it, you expect theater, and then you go in there and be pulled in two different directions. But I think when Richard was given his intro, we were doing a bit at after I'd done my psychic tour, where Bree's in like a police outfit. And so that was the first point where I was like, oh, that explains it. So I'm usually filming my psychic tour at the same moment Richard's filming the intro. So it gives us kind of that first two chances, and then we're in two different parts of the building. So I have my team. I should say hello to them. I think about Roma, who does our photographs on the Instagram. Roma is like the set mom for me, so she keeps me in line. But she's essential to the team. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. You guys have such a great team that you work together, and you can, like I said, there's so much going on in the production to film and edit stuff. You don't know what's going on with the other part of your team. So for you guys to be able to work together, that's amazing. So
yeah, we have our moments, but I think everybody does, where it's just like, for real. Or Richard's like the best neutral skeptic I've ever met in my life, meaning he's not like some skeptics feel as if they like it's their religion. It's personal, that everything should be debunked. But Richard comes at it as kind of neutral. And so he's like vastly surprised sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, how can you not tell that that's evidence? I would smack him, but he's like a head taller than me.
Yeah, for sure. Richard's a pretty big guy, for sure. I think he can handle himself against a spirit. So, but actually, that's a good question for you then. between you and the cast members on the show, has there been one moment that's kind of stood out between you guys that was like, wow, that was unexpected, or something strange happened that even yourself or Richard or Bree was like, I wasn't expecting that?
Door in the first episode of season 3, that was at Lane Pioneer Village. And what was unfortunate is we were kind of setting up for the exit shot. And so the ghost hunt kind of had officially wound down. So Richard, Bree, and I are on the other side of the door of the, I think it's called the Kena Hotel in the Pioneer Village. So the camera crew is waiting for our exit. We're discussing like who's going to walk out first, and where we're going to be positioned. And 2 seconds later, the door just kind of slams right in our face. And Richard swears he heard like something go up the stairs, like a scurrying up the stairs. And so it was a moment where he's more skeptically inclined. He's just like, holy, it just floored us all. And so I took some time to kind of debunk the door, but it cheats my way. And I didn't want to be on my first, investigation go, totally was spirit, and one of us bumped it or something. But it was a big, huge, it kind of put the exclamation mark on an incredible just adventure, an incredible ghost hunt.
No, that sounds amazing. At least that was something that happened when all the cast was right there. There's no denying it. Like, that door closed by itself, and you saw it, right? So,
yeah, it was cool to have Richard be like, there's no way it's going to close or the wind's going to catch it or anything. So it's cool to have our skeptic be the first one to go, nope, spirit did that.
And just for a quick question as well, Richard was picked as a skeptic, or was he chosen just to be like a host type person, or what was his connection?
He was chosen, a little bit of both. Richard's a comedian up here and has done like morning radio, and he does a mean stand-up show, and he's definitely, he was picked as the comedic host / skeptic. And that's he has this kind of attitude of like, hey, prove it to me. And I think that's essential for this show.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to have the skeptic. You don't want to, the host, you don't want a host that is kind of like all in it, saying, yeah, it's all real right away. You have to kind of play both sides of it, right? So.
Yeah, and there's a point where it's like, sometimes you're watching the shows and, a demon appears every single episode. That's a little bit scary too.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want that happening in every episode either. So you have to have that balance in the paranormal shows, I think. So
yeah, definitely.
Anyway, so where do you see the series going then? Since you're from season 3, is there any future series being produced, or what's the story with that?
Yeah, right now we're awaiting a green light, so that could either come from OutTV. And so someone just has to make a decision there to say, yes, the show goes forward. It's our original home here in Canada, and I think it's on OutTV in the States as well, if you happen to have it. Or it could come from Discovery Plus. They're kind of stepping back and have told us that they're watching the numbers, basically. So they haven't officially greenlit anything. Is it greenlit or green lighted? Who knows? We're just looking for it. But we're eager to do another investigation. The whole team's still intact. The majority of our crew are ready for season 4. So we're just kind of sitting back and waiting.
That's great. Hopefully there will be a season 4. I look forward to that, especially if it does come out. Like I said in the first, I'm a big fan of the show, so it's wonderful to have you on here today to get to talk to you about the series and what's involved in being the medium on the series. So, and also the locations too. It's fascinating that they're all local Canadian locations, because you know how in the U.S. they're always emphasized as a U.S. location, right? So it's great to get that Canadian content out there too. So.
Yeah, it gives me a good chance too as an American, because I moved to Canada. I was about 11 years ago. I think it's maybe a bonus that I'm unfamiliar with a majority of Canadian history, but this has given me an avenue to like learning it. So some things as simple as like the way government's structured. When we mentioned Aurelia, that there was a police station within this theater, and that there was a jail cell, and it's like, well, the American in me is like, well, why? But then the American in me, they don't let me know where we're going necessarily. So we go to this Aurelia, and I'm like, okay. And then you see this theater in the middle of what to me appears to be like a smallish town. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that doing here? So it just gives me a chance to like geek out and be a tourist all over again in Canada.
Yeah, do you have a fun time going around to the locations and just being a tourist and walking around and seeing new buildings, seeing our history and learning about stuff? Or
yeah, definitely. Or learning that maybe everything you were told in the States, wasn't quite true. I think about, there's a little place where I get spirits constantly near my home, here in Stony Creek, and there was an 1812 battle that I had like no idea happened there, where the American forces were wiped out there in at that battle site. But to go down and I'm just walking my dog down there. I'm like, well, why are all these, like, I consider them period spirits because they come from a particular time period. Like, why are they congregated here? And so to go back and delve and explore that history as like, oh, they didn't teach us that in the States.
And yeah, they don't really teach a lot of stuff in the States that happen here in Canada, especially stuff to do with the wars. War of 1812 was a big issue here in Canada, and that happened a lot down where you are, especially in Niagara region too. There's a lot of history there too. So yeah, it's a big deal here, but it's great that you can learn about stuff like that in paranormal and investigating. That goes hand in hand, I think, too. So so what are you guys working on now? Is there anything that you want to sort of promote or talk about before we let you go today?
I've just been solidly booked with readings, so I've been trying to concentrate on those. I've been entertaining not so much other shows in the idea that I'm gonna like ditch not ghost or anything, but I like to be in a space of creation, and so I've been trying to work with Kyle some on what we can create as far as like future television, and that's a little bit of a departure for me. I think that 20 years from now, God willing, I'll still be doing my readings. That's where I want to be. My wife starts a yoga teachers training soon, so I think there'll be a lot of babysitting. And I am working on a book. I did a series of Instagram posts back around Halloween regarding my most frightening paranormal investigations, and I've just realized that was the good substance or the body of a work of all those investigations, a book. So I'm right now in the process of fleshing all that out.
Sounds great. Look forward to that coming out, as well as any possible new shows that you're on in the future. We'll check that out for sure. And of course, you're welcome back here on Haunting Live anytime that you want to come back on and talk about your book or any shows or whatever you like. So.
And if you ever want to hook up and just do a ghost hunt or something, I'd love to get together. I understand you guys are like an hour away or something. So.
Yeah, we're close to you. We're located in Kitchener, Ontario, so we're not too far away from your location, and that would be awesome, sure.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, Kevin. And don't forget, guys, to check out Knock Knock Ghost. You said it's on Discovery Plus as well as OutTV. Are they doing reruns as well, or is it just sort of on hold now?
So, seasons 1 through 3 are on Discovery Plus in the States. OutTV, of course, has it here in Canada. And I think we're on fruittv.uk in the UK.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Kevin, so much. Have a great rest of your weekend. And like I said, thank you so much for being here on Haunting Live this week. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
Sorry for that, guys. Had audio issue there, but we got it fixed. Thank you guys so much for being here on Haunting Live podcast this week. Thank you for joining us here on having Kevin as our guest from Knock Knock Ghost on OutTV series. If you want to check him out, he is on OutTV and also on Discovery Plus, so you can check out his series Knock Knock Ghost, where he is the medium on the show. So thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate it for you guys following us on our social media. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube if you like what you see here today. Also hit the like button as well. That helps us out a lot. And follow us, of course, on our Facebook and Instagram as well. We do a lot of postings over there. And of course, if you forget to watch us or you don't have time to watch the live show here each and every week on Sundays at 4 o'clock on YouTube, you can check us out on the podcast apps later on. But with that, guys, thank you so much. And of course, don't forget to tune in next week. We have a brand new paranormal guest coming up next week on Haunting Live. And with that, guys, stay safe, especially with this new variant going around for COVID. So be safe with that. Take all precautions that you can. We can't stress that enough here at Haunting Live. Just stay safe as you can, okay? And also, Merry Christmas. This is our pre-Christmas show. Next episode will be on Boxing Day. So we'll look forward to that with you guys on your holidays. Hope to see you there as well. So with that, guys, have a great weekend and have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you guys later.
I have been a medium or an intuitive since any of my family can remember. When I started talking, it wasn't always to people who were in the room.
Well, I started off as revealing light tarot. I've moved more over the last 4 years, astrology and spiritualism. In a way, spiritualism goes back to my roots.
I suppose my first gift I had, and I thought everybody knew, this is a really bad one. I always knew when people were not telling the truth. And I thought everybody could do that. It was a bit of a shock afterwards when I found out that actually what I was doing, I was tapping into something else.
So when I was a very young kid, I actually used to see some orbs in my room and dark figures, and I was very afraid of the dark. It was right when we had like one computer for the whole house. And I would go on it and I'd Google ghosts and like look into it to understand them, but I would also get very freaked out.
Join us here actually on Divine Oracle Readings on the live radio show. This is right where you get to actually be able to listen, sit back, and hear what's going on with us here actually at Haunting Live Podcast and Divine Oracle Readings. Who knows, you might be able to take part. You can only catch us live here online on Facebook.